The A's are going to move, but should their name move?
You are Locked On A's, your daily Oakland A's podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, A's fans. Welcome to Locked On A's, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We're at your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about the Oakland A's all year long. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Make every moment more as the playoffs wind down. The sports stop sporting like we want them to, but this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. And follow us at Locked On A's on Twitter or whatever it's called now. And on Instagram, I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. There's no game yesterday, so we could talk about a couple other things. And but there's one thing I was thinking about the other day. I think I've said before, and I said this on the in the episode that I did last Christmas, actually, for Locked On MLB, and I may repost that on Locked On A's because I think there was a good message for A's fans on there. But of the many sad things that are going to happen when the A's finally leave Oakland and, squat in the sun in Sacramento until the good folks in Las Vegas either realize, A, this is a horrible idea, or B, it's going to be they're just going to stay in Sacramento, or they build a state. I don't know what it's going to be. But there won't be a team in Oakland anymore. Not just the A's. There won't be any team in Oakland anymore. I said before, they should have kept the Warriors there. They should have found a way to keep the Warriors in Oakland. You would have had a team in the East Bay, in the South Bay, in the Peninsula, and in San Francisco. Giants in San Francisco, 49ers on the Peninsula, the Sharks in the South Bay, the Warriors in the East Bay. The Bay Area has a certain symmetry to the sports. It would be really cool. The entire region is represented. Instead, Oakland gets piddly-poo. And the legacy of the Raiders and the many championships the Raiders won, and the legacy of the A's and the championships and legends of the A's have won, and the legend and the legacy of the Warriors and all the titles the Warriors have won have been ripped right out of Oakland. And do they now belong to San Francisco? Do they belong to Las Vegas? Who knows where they belong to? And Rickey Henderson, one of the 5 greatest offensive players in the history of Major League Baseball, won't have a city that will be his legacy. And it will be even more tragic, I think, than, say, the great players of the Montreal Expos or even the great Brooklyn Dodger players whose teams have been ripped out. But there's a team in Brooklyn, the Nets. If they want to put Jackie Robinson and Duke Snyder and Roy Campanella and Zach Wheat and Don Newcomb and Pee Wee Reese and Gil Hodges, and they want to put all their names out there at the Brooklyn Nets game, they can. If they want to put Andre Dawson and Tim Raines and Vladdy Guerrero and Steve Rogers and Al Oliver and all the great and Gary Carter and Pedro Martinez and all the great members of the Montreal Expos, if they want to hang them and Rusty Staub, hang them at a Montreal Canadiens game, they can. But where in the name of Yahweh are you going to hang Rickey Henderson or Ken Stabler or Steph Curry? Where are their names going to be hanging in Oakland? Okay, fine. The Warriors are just across the bay, but you know what I'm talking about. The championship legacy of Oakland, that stinks that they're not going to have it. But there's another thing I was thinking about in terms of the Expos and in terms of some of the other teams that have moved. Some teams have moved, and when they keep the name, there's a strangeness when they celebrate their past victories there. I've been to a couple of games this year, obviously, at the Oakland Coliseum, and you'll see 72, 73, 74, 89, the titles won in Oakland. But then there'll also be like 29, 30, 1910, 1912, 1913. the titles that were won in Philadelphia. And those always felt a little strange waving in Oakland. Those weren't won for the fans of Oakland. Those are the fans of Philadelphia. Now, to the Philadelphia Phillies' credit, they have outside the stadium a statue of Connie Mack, who is probably is the greatest figure in Philadelphia baseball history, and a list of all the A's who were Hall of Famers who played the bulk of their career as a member of the Philadelphia A's. But those flags should be waving there. Those were for Philadelphia fans. When I was at Oracle Park just last weekend, and I pointed out to my cousin, I went there with my younger cousin, and they had all the flags. John McGraw won pennant after pennant after pennant. He won 9 National League pennants and several World Series along the way. And then there was the 2 World Series titles won by the Giants without John McGraw as the manager. So that would be 1933 when Bill Terry was the manager, and 1954 when Leo DeRocher was the manager. Boom, 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 boom. And I saw that they're different color than the Giants, the San Francisco Giants, where they have 2010, 12, and 14. But I felt that feels a little strange. Those weren't won in San Francisco. They were won by the franchise, but they weren't won by there. I think those flags and the 55 championship won by the Brooklyn Dodgers should all fly at Citi Field, because the Mets are kind of a hybrid of Dodgers and Giants. The look of their uniforms, their color scheme, and even the design of the stadium. The outside is meant to look like Ebbets Field, and some of the inside is meant to look like the Polo Grounds. And those were all the titles that were won for New York National League fans, not San Francisco. And it feels like it's almost like stolen valor. But you don't feel that with the Orioles. You don't feel that with, and I guess you also do feel that with the Braves, I think, because you see the 1914, the 1957 flag flying in Atlanta. Well, 14 was won in Boston, and 57 was won in Milwaukee. The 57 flag should be hanging by Miller Park, or whatever the hell it's called now. And the 1914 Miracle Braves, one of my grandmother's favorite teams, my grandmother, born and raised in Salem, Massachusetts, loved her Rabbit Marinville in the 1914 Braves, who defeated the A's. Those flags are for those fans. Those championships won for those fans. And the A's, their valor they brought from Philadelphia. We should fly the flags of Oakland in Oakland. But it would feel a little less strange, and there's less of a tendency to wave the flags of previous titles and previous championships when the identity of a team changes altogether. And I can't help but think that while the A's have taken their name across the country, that may have been a mistake. And I think that it should be a mistake that is corrected when they do indeed leave Oakland for the last time. All right, let's hear a little bit from our friends over. Sorry about that. Let's hear a little bit from our friends over at FanDuel. Now, you know that I love sports, and sports at this time of the year, oh my God, it's terrific. Baseball is going into its stretch run. You have football is right around the corner, and the Olympics are on every night. Sports are sportsing like never before. And FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone, every day, all summer long. Head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel is an official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Let's hear from our friends over at SupplyHouse. Go to the site that is for all the jobs you're looking for. Order from the website that's made for skilled trades. Find thousands of parts from hundreds of brands in just a couple of clicks at SupplyHouse.com. SupplyHouse.com gives you 24/7 access to a huge selection of plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with fast deliveries anywhere in the U.S. Need help with an order? Get industry-leading after-sales service from their friendly and knowledgeable customer support team. Talk to a real person every time. And there's great news for plumbers, technicians, and contractors. Being a pro has its perks. Trade industry professionals can join their free Trade Master program for free shipping and serious discounts on every order. Over 100,000 pros already trust the Trade Master program to deliver results. Apply for your membership today and get a competitive edge on every order at supplyhouse.com/TM. Save money and time when you order online. Order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies from supplyhouse.com. Real purpose, real people, real service at supplyhouse.com. Hey, where do you go for your hub for all of your news, sports takes, for your sports news, for your sports opinion? Now, may I recommend you make the switch over to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories in all of sports. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or on the free Amazon Fire TV channel app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. If I bring up the Orioles, do you think about St. Louis? If I bring up the Twins, do you think about Washington, D.C.? For that matter, when I bring up the Texas Rangers, do you think about Washington, D.C.? Do you think about Montreal when you mention the Nationals? Do you think about the city of Seattle when I bring up the Brewers? There have been several instances where a team has changed cities and with that changed their identity. I heard the actor Bradley Whitford from The West Wing refer to every once in a while you have to shake the Etch-a-Sketch. And sometimes you have to make a big move. I've made several big moves in my life. I've made several big changes in my life. And every time I've made a big change, I've embraced it, but I've also gone full on. Maybe, just maybe, when the Giants moved to San Francisco, they should have been the Seals. And the Dodgers moved to Los Angeles. Maybe they should have been the Stars or the Angels. Maybe they should have assumed the identity. Said, you know what, we're no longer that team. The Browns were a team in St. Louis, and when they moved to Baltimore, they did not become the Baltimore Browns. For that matter, when Cleveland moved their team, they become the Baltimore Browns. What is it with Baltimore fascinated with the teams named Brown? They had a new identity. And by the way, the identity that the Orioles took, the Orioles were a minor league team. And they assumed the name of the minor league team when they came there. When the expansion American League team came to Los Angeles, they picked the minor league team, the Angels. The expansion team in San Diego, they were the PCL team were called the Padres. The National League team became the Padres. A minor league team in Milwaukee were called the Brewers. So when the Seattle Pilots moved there, they became the Pilots. Maybe when the Braves moved to Milwaukee, they should have left the Braves name in Boston. Or maybe the Braves should have left the Braves name in Milwaukee. I don't know the answer to that. It would have been a little tough if Atlanta had their minor league team, which were the Crackers. Problematic. Some people remembered when the Nationals won the World Series, there was a connection to the fact that they were originally the Montreal Expos. But I think that's because it was the most recent move, and there were still a lot of fresh memories of the Expos. But eventually that'll fade away. And I believe that the title that the Washington Nationals won had a lot more in connection to the 1924 and 25 Washington Senators who won back-to-back pennants than it did to anything in Montreal. Much like when the Rangers won the World Series, No one was thinking fondly of the expansion Senators, just like when the Twins finally won the World Series in 1987, no one was connecting them back to Washington either. And part of that is the new identity. It wasn't the Minnesota Senators. It was the Twins, a connection to the city. The second Washington Senator teams became the Texas Rangers, not the Texas Senators. They became the Rangers, a connection to the place that didn't have the baggage of their previous incarnation. Maybe they should have been the Oakland Oaks when they moved here. I don't know, and neither do you. But the fact of the matter is, they should leave the name and the identity behind. Maybe a new name identity would help. Maybe this is like calling the vacuum place in Breaking Bad and getting a whole new identity. I'll take the Hoover Vac extension. Boom, you got a brand new identity. Get a fresh start. Maybe people associate the green and gold with a lot of weirdness in Oakland. The A's, as much as you and I may love the A's, they're a weird franchise. And there's not been, remember that normal part of the Oakland A's? First they had Charlie Finley with the donkey, and they won titles, but somehow we're still fighting each other. Then you had that weird blip with Billy Martin. The one relatively normal time was Tony La Russa, but you still had Canseco and people injecting God knows what into their body. Then you had Moneyball. Then you've had the Fisher nonsense. Then you have them sitting on the couch in Sacramento. There's been no normal part in Oakland. They have a strange uniform. They have a strange history. They have a strange name. Whether you call them the Athletics or the A's, that's weird. And there would be almost a sense of stolen valor if you're flying their championships there. And maybe you don't want to have the identity that people associate the A's with, bottom feeding in the payroll and hoping to roll the dice and get lucky. If they move to Las Vegas, at this point, I'm not sure that you're going to. I think they should be make it close. They should be the Vegas Aces or the Vegas Stars or something like that. But I think you need, if you're going to change the team and change the identity, I think one of the things that's putting off people in Las Vegas is that sense of, oh, we're getting someone's leftovers. We're getting a team that couldn't make it in Oakland. We're getting a team whose ownership screwed them over there and still have the same uniforms and everything. We don't want someone's leftovers. We want our own team. Well, by the time the A's get there, if you give them a new identity, you give them a new franchise look, it's like a fresh start. And you won't have the baggage that you have behind them. You still have the Fishers, but if they do what that shirt says, maybe they won't. And for A's fans, I think it'd be easier to tolerate if the team just didn't look and feel like your old team. I'm a native of Connecticut, and I know a couple of people were born and raised in Connecticut. And I know two people specifically who grew up with such pride that their NHL team were the Hartford Whalers. Because where they lived, they constantly had to choose between a Boston team or a New York team as growing up in Connecticut. And then for hockey, they could choose where they were from. And eventually, the Hartford Whalers moved and became the Carolina Hurricanes. And my friends Todd and Sean were absolutely gobsmacked and crushed. They loved their Whalers. Eventually, the Whalers went on to win the Stanley Cup in Carolina. And I remember I talked to my friend Todd, who I hadn't really talked to for a long time. And I said, how do you feel? And he said, they're not the Whalers anymore. He said, if they were wearing the Whalers uniform, I'd be devastated. But now they're just another team. Listen to my friend. Have the A's start. If you're going to start fresh, start fresh. You don't associate those other teams with their original clubs. So why do it to the A's? Hey, have you noticed something? It's hot. It is hot. And let me tell you something. If you're going to be going to any games in Sacramento, oh boy, are you going to be sweating. It is going to be sweating big time, sitting in the stands. If you're going to be in Sacramento, heck, if you're going to be here in Northern California, going to an A's game or over to the Giants, you're going to be sweating a bunch. It's warm. The world's on fire. So don't forget to dehydrate with liquid IVs, popsicle, firecracker flavor. It's a surefire summer hit. You can get hydrated with electrolytes, essential vitamins, and clinically tested nutrients from the #1 powdered hydration brand in America. Because baseball and summer go together like liquid IV and indulgent hydration. Let me tell you something. They've got great flavors if you want to go to liquid IV. They have acai berry. Is that a real thing? You got lemon lime. You got pina colada, in case you're not caught in the rain. But you can get blast off with iconic summer flavors like popsicle firecracker, which is a festive blend of lemon-fueled lime, tart cherry, and raspberry flavor. And if you know me, and I know I do, I love anything that's raspberry flavored. So you got to stay hydrated. The world's hot. It's getting hotter every year. Why? That's up for debate. But what is up for debate is it keeps getting hotter and you keep sweating and you need all this stuff in your body to keep you hydrated. Tear, pour, live more. 1 stick plus 16 ounces of water hydrates you better than water alone. Powered by LIV Hydroscience. Hail Hydroscience, an optimized ratio of electrolytes, essential vitamins, and clinically tested nutrients that run through ordinary water, and it gives you extraordinary hydration. 3 times the electrolytes of the leading sports drink, 8 essential vitamins and nutrients, always non-GMO, vegan, gluten-free, dairy-free, soy-free. No kidding. No more thirsty summers when you indulge in the hydration of liquid IV. Get 20% off your first order. You listen to me right now? 20% off your first order of liquid IV when you go to liquidiv.com and use code MLB at checkout. That's 20% off your first order when you shop for better hydration today using code MLB at liquidiv.com. Look, I am a very, and did I mention very modest man. And I need to tell you that I am humble for all of you who treat this as your first listen. Now, let me humbly suggest a second listen. More of me, Locked On MLB. If you're not subscribed to both shows, what are you missing? I'm here to provide you with my expertise, not just on the A's, but on all of Major League Baseball. I'm going to get you ready for the MLB playoffs and maybe even tell you A's fans who you should be rooting for in the playoffs. Come prepared for the Fall Classic with me, your pal Sully. I've got it covered every single day on Locked On MLB, available on the YouTubes, wherever you get your podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is indeed your team every day. All right, got the Dodgers coming in, and the Dodgers are on a down tick right now, and LA is going to be starting. What's his name? It's going to be Gavin Stone. Gavin Stone's a good pitcher. Yamamoto is still on the injured list. Buehler's still on the injured list. Kershaw looks cooked. They trade away James Paxton. Someone explain to me why they would do that. We're probably going to see Flaherty make his first start with the Dodgers. Estes is pitching for Oakland, and it is a Freddie Freeman-less Dodger lineup. You know, the A's had the best record in the American League for July. We're starting up to see how August can be. And throughout the rest of this year, we're going to see if the A's can continue to upset teams along the way. Oh, by the way, the A's are hoping to catch the Angels, right? Well, the Mets are in Anaheim playing the Angels. If the A's can beat the Dodgers and the Mets can beat the Angels, we will creep a full game towards the Angels. And who's pitching for the Mets tonight? Blackburn, our old friend. So maybe he's no longer on the A's, but maybe he can help. All right. Well, I wanted to say my piece about the A's and their name. I hope they keep him here in Oakland. So, big game today, Friday. No show on Saturday and Sunday. We'll come back on Monday, and I'll do one of those episodes where I recap the Friday, Saturday, and Sunday game. And hopefully, to quote the fans in Boston chanting to the Philadelphia 76ers, the A's will live by the credo, beat LA. By the way, the 76ers started in Syracuse. Do you ever think of them connected to Syracuse? I'm not saying, I'm just saying. Talking about the A's identity and hoping their identity of a upsetting team will continue through the month of August. This has been Locked on A's. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully.